can. We're also hoping to get through the sort of more formal bits quite quickly and then move into a space where we can do some Q&A, perhaps break into small groups like we do when we teach, so you can feel what it's like, where each one will have a faculty member with you. Maybe before I kick off, I'd like to just introduce ourselves very briefly and the colleagues, our faculty who are here. So I'll kick off with myself. I'm one of the directors at the Center for Coaching. I'm also employed at UCT, so I'm the academic director as well. And I've been privileged to work with Craig almost from the beginning, but Craig is our founding father. So let me perhaps hand over to you, Craig, briefly, just to introduce yourself.
Sure. My name is Craig O'Flaherty. I kind of started this journey into coaching about 24 years ago, and kind of went and realized nobody in this country coached. So went offshore for about 3 years backwards and forwards, and then kind of came back and said, look, I think this is a happening thing and it needs to be in this country. So approached the business school that I'd spent a lot of time hiring from I was a consulting partner with Accenture, and kind of had a very visionary dean at the time, and he said, yeah, let's try this. And it's just exploded from there over the last 20 years. I don't work for the business school. I'm a director of the center, but we're a center of excellence. So it's one of those amazing arrangements where we have a linkage to the business school through Janine and the business school itself, but obviously kind of we take care of our own revenues and sources. So it's a very good arrangement in terms of how we work. So that's a little bit about me.
Thanks, Craig. And so then one of our rising stars, so Nothemba, who's also leading with us on this program.
Thanks, Janine. My name is Nothemba Mxenge, and I have been in this wonderful world of integral coaching since 2013. Yeah, 2013, and I haven't looked back since. It's a lovely community, a lovely way of being with others and engaging with others. And I wish you all the best in contemplating whether you want to be part of the community or not. Welcome.
Thanks, Nothemba. And then our next key faculty member is one of our founding mothers of our Swiss Center for Coaching, is Michelle Studman, who, over to you, Michelle.
Thank you. Yes, wonderful to call that, but so I am one of the founding partners of the Swiss branch, if you will. We brought much like Craig, who found that the style of integral coaching is so powerful, we decided to bring it to Switzerland as well in 2014. And also been going from strength to strength there. And it's wonderful to have an international community and have that online as well now. Thank you.
Thanks, Michelle. Bridget, I know you're not officially here as a faculty member, but Bridget is also one of our faculty members. So thank you for joining us as well. Okay, so what I'm going to do is just very briefly, these are the human beings who and Petsile is another faculty member, will join when she can a bit later. I'm just briefly going to share my screen to give you the very little bits of CfD, our origins. Okay, so I'm going to do our origins, which is just what is our story. And our story, as Craig mentioned, is Craig came up with the idea of bringing coaching to South Africa back in 2000, and with much tromping around and wearing down the corridor carpets. He and I finally met. I was lecturing in, what was it, company analysis at the time, and decided coaching was far more attuned to my way of being than teaching on the MBA program in that topic. So that's where we finally got together. So this business school has been our home since 2001, nearly 20 years, in fact, now. So we have quite a team going. What do? Is we do teach people to become coaches, and we also do other work like leadership conversations, all done in an integral philosophy, organizational alignment, transformation, one-on-one coaching provided in bulk, and leadership development programs, even mentoring training using our philosophy underneath it. And all of these things came out of our teaching, because people would come on our courses and go, but hang on a second, we'd like to bring this into the workplace, for example. So we've landed up working in more than 20 different countries, 29 actually, different countries at this point and counting, over the last 20 years. So, and that's always been a great source of delight. The reason I raise this is because no matter where I've taught this in the world, and I personally have done many of these 29 countries, integral coaching, this philosophy seems to get through to every single different cultural stance, whether it's in the Congo or in Africa or South Africa with our 11 different languages and such rich cultural heritages. There's a common thread that reaches our humanity, or whether it's working in Russia or the Ukraine or Australia and Papua New Guinea, doesn't matter. This resonates with human beings, and we believe that's what makes it so powerful. We've worked with many blue chip organizations, and again, that's just a flash for you to know that whether we're working in blue chips at the most senior levels, or whether we're working with the miners on the shop floor, or even on conveyor belts, we've run programs with factory workers. It's, again, this way of working with people fundamentally shifts people's insights into themselves and the way they work in life, and is an amazing contribution. So we're very passionate about the style of coaching, which I think is one of the important considerations when you think about where you're going to study, is it needs to feel right. You need to feel, do I want to show up in this kind of way? So maybe then, Craig, I can hand over to you about a little bit more about the theory.
One of the things we've had to learn over the last year or so, because now all our courses are run online, and like all of us, we're hoping for kind of virus to disappear, vaccinations to happen, but we had to literally reinvent everything we did. So what I'd like to do is do the next few areas by actually drawing some pictures rather than kind of showing slides. And that's what we've realized is a very powerful way of starting to work with people in this kind of technology. I suppose the first question that people often ask, and it's a huge definitional question, is what is coaching? And I suppose the thing to think about, that we think about a lot, is when I'm coaching, obviously it's a very powerful and profound relationship between two people. And there are many other disciplines around: mentoring, guiding, counseling, consulting. And I suppose their way of working is when somebody comes with a challenge or something that they're wanting to work on, either a new skill that they're wanting to build, or something that they're wanting to enhance or increase, is that the role of that person, whether they're consultant, guide, manager, a counselor, etc., is usually to kind of work with that issue and spend a lot of the time that the person is working, that they're working with the person on, let's resolve the issue. Let's find a way to take that away for you, improve or enhance. I suppose the philosophy of integral coaching says that, the people that we work with firstly have a head. So there is a very kind of strong way of thinking. They also have hearts. So they feel lots of emotions. And obviously they live in a body, which is the kind of the house for not only the head, but also the heart. And so what we do as integral coaching, where does the term come from, is we work with the whole human being. What is it that we can do to work with that entire human being? And how do we kind of make that work? So the kind of coaching that we do kind of says that the person comes with a challenge or an issue. And what our focus is how do we actually work with that human being, with that person, and build their competency in terms of, can we invite them to think about things in a new way? Can we start getting them to realize how their emotions are either getting in the way or assisting or guiding or helping? And very importantly, how can they start acting, behaving, and being in a way that starts to kind of make the changes? So I suppose our fundamental goal and outcome as coaches is, can we coach the whole person and not the problem that they're coming with? And that sounds like a very easy phrase, but all of you have come from extraordinary backgrounds where your fundamental training, and I know I had to go this for many, many years, my goal as a consultant was come up with smart, bright, new ideas, scenarios, etc. And I had to learn to sit on my hands. I had to learn to find a way to get that out of the way so that I could actually work with the person. And could I help to build their competence and capacity so that they built their own way of kind of resolving, reaching, and acquiring a way to work. So I suppose that's the kind of thing I'd like to kind of, the first point I'd like us to think about is integral coaching is working with that whole human being. And if I can work with that whole human being and I can build their competence and capacity, it's they who start to become the architect of what's happening. So in this kind of coaching, we work in a very unusual way. We work with three very powerful things, and some of those things have been around for a long time. The first thing we work with is something called narrative. Everyone lives in a story, and that story is either helping or it's hindering them. So one of the things with this kind of coaching is what we do is, can we craft together with the person a deeper narrative, a new narrative that they might be able to step into? So, for example, if somebody has a narrative of, look, I was the marketing director of this organization, and I'm a problem solver. That's what I do. I kind of find ways of resolving problems. A new narrative that we might want to consider inviting that person into when they become the chief executive is, how can you become the kind of the kind of visionary and the scanner? How can you scan the environment rather than getting lost in the story? Can you actually build your capacity to hold back? Can you build your capacity to ask really compelling questions? Can you find ways of actually getting out of the way, which you didn't do as marketing director, but can you find the way of creating the space in which your people can thrive and generate their own ways? So that's what we talk about when we talk about narrative. The other thing we talk about a lot in this kind of coaching is we work with things called practices. So what we'll design for somebody is a practice, a new way of thinking or doing something. So for example, if I tell the story of the person that I was telling you, one of the things that I did when I was working with this person is you need to build your capacity to pause. It was very clear that he would walk into a meeting or even on a Zoom call and from the get-go would start to dominate. Well, how about you build your capacity to actually pause, ground yourself, and actually reflect and think. And once you've heard what other people are saying, then give a much more considered view. But for those of us who are impatient or who like to do things and like to make things happen, pausing is an incredibly difficult art and capacity to build. And the other thing that we do as coaches is we also work on things called self-observations. And a self-observation is where we invite somebody to go through the day, stop 2 or 3 times a day, look back and say, how often was I doing X or Y or Z? For this person, the person that we're talking about as my example, my self-observation for him was Stop 2 or 3 times a day and ask yourself the question, running interference. How often were you interfering in what people were doing or saying versus actually allowing something to grow and evolve? You are the CEO. You can make very tough decisions. That's what you're being called to. But ultimately, what decisions are you going to make if you keep kind of interfering? So the self-observation was, how often are you actually interfering in a situation? That's the kind of focus that we were working on with this kind of chief executive. So I hope what that gives you is a sense that our coaching is about understanding where the person is, understanding where they're trying to get to, helping to build a narrative or a story. And narratives are thousands of years old. And story, what's that story I could live into? And then kind of over the time that we're coaching them, co-design with them practices and self-observations that could build their competency. Because ultimately, I think what this coaching is trying to do, and it's a really important point, is we're trying to leave the person with this capacity to self-correct and self-generate themselves. And I think that's an important part of what we're trying to do. So this kind of coaching is really saying that the outcomes of the coaching is, can the person self-correct rather than always having to come to me? And can they start to self-generate? In other words, they kind of say to me, you know, Craig, I was doing this with you. I'm also a member of my church committee. And what I started to realize is the actions and behaviors I was doing in my job, I was actually doing there. So I actually took that pausing practice you gave me, and I actually did that kind of reflecting practice you gave me, and I started to do it when I went to church council meetings. And I started to notice I showed up in a very, very different way. And that's the self-correcting and self-generating that we're inviting clients to focus on. So I think hopefully what you're starting to get a sense of is we're coaching the whole person. We're coaching think and feel and act. And we're also kind of designing with the person, never for the person, because coaching is something you're doing with somebody. You're walking this passageway with them. What are the kinds of things that can build competence and capacity? Because if I can't leave that for you, the danger is you keep relying and coming back to me. And the best thing about this kind of coaching is you work yourself out of a job. You work yourself out of them needing you. And I think that's the greatest gift that you can give to somebody, is you build their confidence, competence, and capability to become and do the things that they want to do. I think there are different kinds of coaching. So I'm going to stop there and kind of say that's enough kind of blabber from our side. What about questions and thoughts and reflections from your side? I mean, what's arising for you as we kind of speak? What's coming up for you?
Craig, it's Michelle here. I just,
Michelle.
With the holistic approach that you take, what happens as a coach when you come across areas of the person that you can't help, whether it be a medical or, I mean, because it could be things, what happens as a coach when you can only go so far because maybe there are things that are out of your capacity when you look at the person holistically?
Yeah. So I'm going to invite, I mean, there are other voices in this room. Natemba, would you like to give that a go?
Yeah, I mean, I always like to put it across that we always need to remember when we're helping people what hat we are wearing and what our expertise are. Because sometimes when you have a client in front of you, you are tempted to be everything to the client. So in a sense, it's understanding what are my capabilities as a coach, what is in my scope of responsibility and expertise, and everything else can be referred out. So there isn't just one way to support and to help people. There's many other ways to support others, and we need to be clear as coaches, what is our way of supporting and helping?
Michelle, I don't know how that answers your question.
Yeah, it is helpful. Thank you very much.
I think if I can add to that, very often that's exactly the topic of coaching, is coaching somebody into how to ask for help, how to even notice that they need help, and then to ask for it. So yeah, in almost any situation, there's a hidden underlying capability that that is a pattern in their lives that is probably tripping them up in all sorts of different ways. So yeah, very often that's a nice way to go as well.
Thank you.
It's Kim here. I am, as Janine will know from our earlier conversation today, I'm just intrigued about where the line is between coaching and mentoring, because as you describe it, Craig, I can almost see. I mentor at the moment. I've been mentoring for a few years now, and trying to understand where I thought I had a reasonably clear line where the line is between coaching and mentoring. And I guess the coach has to resist lurching into mentoring. Is that how you would see it?
Well, yeah, I think that, I mean, if we take, where does the word mentor come from? It comes from that beautiful ancient Greek story of, basically Odysseus said, I'm going to war. My son is Telemachus, and I need a father figure to look after him. And so Mentor was his best friend. And he said to Mentor, can you please guide and advise and be counsel to my young son as he grows into boyhood and manhood? And I think the powerful thing about mentoring, and people often ask the question, coaching versus mentoring, which is better? I think that's such a poor question. I think they are both absolutely and extraordinarily necessary. But I think mentoring is that great opportunity when somebody comes to me and says, look, I need a bit of mentoring and guidance. What I would do as a mentor, which may be very different to me as a coach, is I would say, there are 2 or 3, you came asking for some guidance on what role you could take. Maybe I'm going to set you up with 2 people that I know, and I'm going to actually, they're very good friends, they owe me something. I'm going to kind of ask you to go and see them. So the one thing I'm going to do as a mentor is open possibilities that were never there before. I think the second thing is that I'm going to trust the scars on my back and say, let me tell you what I did, what happened to me. So I might tell them stories of, well, what were my learning points? And I think that that's extraordinary in mentoring, but we're never going to do that in coaching, which is quite frustrating sometimes because we think we have the answer. But coaching is building that capacity to step aside. And I think the other thing with mentoring that's really important is that if somebody is coming, what I want to do is I want to kind of open up possibilities that were never there before. So through my influence, I might actually kind of give them something much more of a solution-based answer to what they're doing, and kind of say, these are things that you can trust, go and do them. I don't know if that kind of helps as a possible answer, Kim, in terms of the difference.
It does. I mean, it's an area I'm exploring. So yes, it does help. I just worry that perhaps some coaches might get frustrated at not being able to get into the mentoring space.
Yeah.
As you say, seeing probably a pretty obvious solution for a client, but having to stop themselves from saying, well, why don't you try X?
Yeah.
It worked for me in a similar situation, brackets. Anyway, yeah, we'll just leave it at there, I think.
Oh, it's great. And one of the things we do on this course is we explore the differences between various other modalities. And we kind of start saying, well, what's the difference between consulting, guiding, mentoring, managing, etc. And let's see the differences, because I think there are also huge power differences. I think with mentor, because of age, experience, etc., there is a power differential. Somebody comes to you for mentoring, there is power. What you do as a coach, which is really, really challenging, the most challenging is you leave your power at the door. So that power in terms of authority, power in terms of knowledge, power in terms of anything, I walk this road with you. What I'm not going to do is literally pathfind for you and make it happen for you. And I think that is way harder to do than we might think. Yeah. But I hope that answers the question, Kim. Yeah.
Hi, this is Julie.
Hi, Julie.
I'm in Saudi Arabia. Integral coaching, the way you explained it, it touches on the whole human being, basically 3 elements: how one thinks, feel, and acts. I understand as human beings, we're the makeup of the environment, the society, almost everything around you influenced who you are as a person. Now, the program itself, to what extent does it explore and help the person understand his makeup, and also help that person to empty the cup, to start adopting new behavior, to be able to enhance most probably your behavior around other people and your capacity to function. For an example, as a leader, you made an example of a CEO, to help that CEO to be effective, given everything around him, the makeup, and also help him to transit into a new way of thinking, of feeling around other people, maybe managing his emotions and so on. To what extent do you explore to help the person understand himself and also help him or her to transit to the next level?
Beautiful question. So, Michelle, would you like to kind of bring Switzerland in here and give a sense of that?
So it's very much during the course of the 6 months. I would say it's a personal journey for oneself as well, because in order to help somebody else to step into that space, we have to also be able to see our own stories, our own limitations, our own things that keep us from seeing certain things. And so the 6 months is really a journey for ourselves. And by doing that, we also, during those 6 months, learn how to help somebody to get into that space, to how to be able to accompany them on their own journey to move into that widening of how they're seeing their world and the world around them. I don't know if that helps.
Yeah, it does. I think it the way you explain it, it helps oneself to understand who he is or who she is, while also equipping you to be able to help others to identify themselves and also find new ways of doing things that will help them to be effective as human beings.
And I think just adding on to... Sorry, Janine, go for it.
Maybe that can actually also speak to our teaching approach, which is very much that every single bit of theory, in fact, every action we ask you to do has a purpose. So even when we're asking you to check in, there'll be a reason and a theoretical underpinning for that. But every single bit of theory that we share with you is has been boiled down into something that is incredibly useful. So we'll share a model with you, and then you will apply it first to yourself. So we teach in short bursts of theory. There'll be 15, maximum 20 minutes of speaking, okay? Like Craig would have done that definition. He would do that, and then immediately we'd break into small groups where every second or third time you'd have a professional coach with you in that group. And we'd say, okay, now apply it to yourself. What do you see? What would be hard for you about doing that? How would you feel if you can't give advice? What does it bring up for you? And we adopt this, adult learning principles. Adults learn through applying things to themselves, first and foremost, and then experimenting out there in a safe environment where you feel able to make mistakes. And that's the other thing. We very strongly encourage a community learning environment where you get to know each other very well, because you are sharing with this perfect person, this person who you've only met, a moment ago. You'll be sharing this model. You unpack yourself into the model, and somehow before you know it, you're unpacking yourself. And of course, you're practicing your coaching skills of how to listen deeply and non-judgment and all that sort of thing. And so you're learning while doing. And that's what makes it so very powerful. And that's why so many people, they come to us, they say, I've come to you for a certificate. And halfway through they go, oh dear, I'm actually learning more about myself than I ever thought possible, because it's not even really about the certificate. But the certificate, of course, is important. You walk out of there a competent coach, but you can't become a competent coach unless you've learned to unpack yourself, how to be open, and you've understood yourself better as well. Yeah. So that's how we actually do it in the room.
Okay. Any other questions that emerge immediately?
Hi, I'm Bridget.
Hi, Bridget. Hi, Bridget.
I just wanted to find out, as you say, with the 6 months program, you come out, you emerge as a competent coach. I just want a little bit more clarity in terms of doing the 6 months program, the coaching for development, and then moving on to the professional program in 6 months. You know, what for the 6 month program, when you say you're going to be a competent coach, what are you going to come out with versus then going on to doing the professional coach with the UCT program? You know, there's a lot of other programs that will offer a coaching course that is just for the year and you go straight into it. Why have you divided the two, and what are you going to ultimately come out with?
Yeah. So maybe I can, Bridget, I can answer the question by kind of giving us a sense of what the 6 months is about and then what might happen. And if I haven't answered the question, please just come back to that, if that's okay. So
yeah, that would be great. Thank you.
It's a great segue into kind of saying, so what happens in the 6 months? I think the first thing to think about in the 6 months, I mean, what's actually happening is that there are 3 kind of modules. And the first one of those is the foundations of integral coaching. And here what we're doing is we're exploring the difference between obviously coaching and other modalities. And we're trying to explore what is it are the major models that we use in coaching. So, for example, in this kind of coaching, there are actually 3 conversations that you're having with somebody. There's a conversation for understanding, there's a conversation for possibility, and a conversation for action. And in a coaching dialogue, you need to know where you are and where the client is. And can you start to really build an understanding of the client? And then can you move towards what are the many possibilities we could go to from here? And what's the action? What are those practices and reflections that we could build with you that could get you towards that narrative that you're going for? Somebody might say, you know, I'm wanting to be stronger and more robust in my role. So you might say, well, you know, there's a very robust tree we have in Africa called the acacia thorn tree. So how about if your narrative was becoming the acacia thorn, which is you've got this robustness, you've got this resilience and strength, you can outlast pretty much any storm and even fires, but you have this deep-rooted system. So how do we translate that into what you're doing? The other thing is that we share with you some of the models that we talk about in coaching. And the first of those models is a model that we talk about, which is if we're going to understand somebody in an integral way, we talk about a model called the I, we, it. My competency is in terms of what's my relationship to me, what's my relationship to others, and what's my relationship to things, processes, people, and places around me. And all of us have a need or a competence in some of those areas. Very few of us are competent in all of those, and that's usually where we get stuck. Some of us may be fantastic in the I, which is I know myself well, really great on the we. I know my area of weakness is the area of the it domain, which is managing processes, people, etc. And that's always an area that I have to keep working on, build my competence and capacity. There's another model that we talk about, which is levels of development. We use a very powerful model to say, if you're going to coach somebody, you need to understand, and it's a strange model because we talk about going deeper into development. Many models are drawn in terms of I ascend into development. And this kind of model teaches us, well, how do we work in terms of descending into levels of development? And the third model we use is a very powerful model, which is a model which is, excuse me, just need to get that going again, which is a model in terms of head, heart, and body. So if we're going to build competence and capacity, what are those? And as Janina said, all the time we're applying those to you. And then what you do is you leave the course, and we obviously kind of, we have about 10 to 11 coaches that are on the course. So we're constantly talking to you, putting you into smaller groups, discuss, apply it to yourself, coming back. But we also show you how to coach, and we actually get you coaching. So by the end of those 3 days, you will have been coached by somebody and you will have coached somebody. So you're starting to get your feet wet in terms of how to do that. And then what you do is you go out and you start working with 3 people. And that's a very powerful thing, that during each and every single, between each module, you're going out and working with clients yourself and applying what you learn. And I think that that's a very fundamental thing. The other thing that you're doing is we put you into pods. And those pods are really important because the group learning that you do in a pod of people is really, really powerful. So a place and a space that you can go to, and you're learning from other coaches. How are you applying this? What are you getting right? What are you getting wrong? The other thing that we do is on the second module is we talk and we go to a much deeper dive into something called speech acts. We're a linguistic being. We use language. We're unlike other beings on this planet. They use sound, they use smell, they use vibration. We use speech. And so what we work with you on is what are the foundations of speech that people use? And we do something called, we work with you on the speech acts. So for example, making a clear request is a powerful speech act, but not everyone knows how to make requests. They'll complain, they'll moan, etc., but they won't say to somebody, what I need from you is this. Here's my request of you. Another beautiful speech act is a promise. When somebody makes a request of you, I don't always have to say yes, which is unfortunately what we tend to do a lot of the time. We can also say things like no. We can also say things, I need to get back to you. We can also go back and say, I've gone away and thought about it. Can I negotiate? You asked me to do X. Can I negotiate time? That's a competence and skill that you can build into somebody. So speech acts are a very powerful thing. And then the last module is where we do the body. A lot of this work is around the body. So how is it that you can help and work with somebody in terms of changing how they think, how they feel and act, and also kind of their actions and behaviors? And all of those are building your competence and capacity to kind of coach in a very integral way. And that's what we're trying to do. The kind of coaching that you do here, and I hope I'm going to answer the question that Bridget asked, is the kind of coaching here is a very different kind of coaching, because what you're coaching is you're helping somebody to work with immediate challenges and issues. It's developmental. The kind of coaching that we're doing on the 12-month course is we're going a lot deeper. We're actually going into saying, what about that person's way of being in the world can we work with? What are their fundamental philosophies of life? How can we start to never influence or change those, but how can we invite that person not only to change, well, I've got a challenge at work, but what if I wanted to change my whole life? What if somebody came to me and said, it's not only about work, Craig, this is happening in family life, it's happening in my relationship with my kids, happening in relationship with my friends. Can you coach the whole person? And that's what we're doing, Bridget, is kind of taking the skills that we've applied, and we're actually saying, how can we help you to coach somebody's way of being? How can we help you to go deeper, broader, and much more profoundly to work with that person? And people come to us and say, well, why does it take 18 months? Well, if somebody came to me and said, I've got a 6-month course and I want to go to you to change your life, and somebody comes to you and says, well, I have 18 months of training, maybe I'm going to go to the person with 18 months, because not only will they have learnt, well, not only will they have been coached through their own life, worked with other coaches, but I think their depth of knowledge and understanding is a lot more profound and deeper. I hope that answers the question, Bridget. It's a really beautiful question that you've asked.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you, Craig.
Surely, yeah. So what other questions might that bring up in terms of how this course is designed and how you work? It wasn't that good an explanation, so don't tell me that I've answered all your questions.
Craig, perhaps you can just break down a little bit from the beginning to the end of the 6 months? I know there's a number of days that you get together, and you mentioned that there's practical work between. Just
Surely.
a little bit more on like the process.
Okay, Janine, I'm going to invite you to take that question.
Okay. Let's see, what can I say that Craig hasn't already said? So he's given you the meta picture. I think what's important is that the contact days are 100% compulsory. So because we sign for your literal face-to-face coaching hours of training, we can't, it's not something you can sort of come and go or catch up by reading. So those 8 contact days, so it's 3 days, and then a break, and then 3 days, and then the last 2 days together. And we put the first 2 modules closer together than the modules 2 and 3, because what we do is immediately you finish module 1, you're expected to start to go out and start coaching, because coaching is a practitioner's art. You can study coaching all day long. It's not going to make you a better coach. The only thing that helps you improve is practice. So we require that you go out and find, even before you start, we will send you pre-course work, and we'll say part of that is go out and find 3, actually preferably 4 coachees, people who are willing and wanting to be coached, and who are willing to commit to having 6 to 8 sessions with each of you. And well, not with each, with you, and then they will be willing to start after module 1, because at module 1 we give you everything you need to kick off the coaching, and then you are required to start your coaching and to write a case study where we give you lots of supporting material, but to just write a case study of your experience of that and how you use the models. And you will get your initial feedback before the beginning of the second module, so that if you're going off-piste somehow and you've misunderstood or haven't quite grasped it, you get caught very quickly. And then at the second module, normally people are still quite confused, and we sort of recenter everybody, and we teach you some more stuff, what you can do in the middle of coaching. Because in module 1, you learn how to kick off a coaching and to do the first 3 or 4 sessions. But then, you know, you need some more meat for the middle. So you learn about that at the module, and then you go out and once again, you apply what you learn into your actual cases. And those second and third cases, you write those up. And you also have sort of monthly reflection letters, we call them, which are more, we give you a directed page or page and a half to reflect on something in particular, which also all supports your sort of inner dialogue, your inner exploration. And those feedbacks and conversations are held together with your pod mentor, who becomes, you know, very much your mentor as you journey in your small group through there. And the course is designed so that you can finish, if you've managed to keep up, you're able to finish and submit everything just before the third module, which means that you can finish module 3 and graduate, or not graduate really, it's but certify, because it's a certificate, straight after module 3. Many people, though, who come to us are very busy. They're very, very busy. They've got a lot of pressures and so on, or life happens, especially in these COVID times, they get sick or whatever. And then we say, just come to the modules, and maybe you need an extension for the written work. As long as you submit it within the next, you know, you negotiate over 3-4 months or so, then we can extend that as well. So we try and be very flexible if we can, bearing in life, people's life situations are just so complicated at the moment.
Thank you. I have 2 questions. Is there a normal duration to the relationship a coach has, whether it's 4 sessions, 6 sessions, 8 sessions, or does it depend really on the individual and the extent to which they wish to delve into things? And the second question I have is, you mentioned COVID. Has your coaching needs or the needs of your clients changed? How has that impacted the work that you and the team have been doing with COVID? Not specifically in terms of the logistics that it's all remote, but the actual topics that people are coming to you about. Thanks.
So I'll answer the first one, then I'm going to invite Notemba to take the second one. So the first one about, which was, what was the first one again?
The duration, is it a coaching relationship? Is it normally X number of sessions or?
So this style of coaching, because we are developing a competence, so this is called competency-based coaching, and we're working to develop innate capabilities, habitual patterns of behavior. We're shifting habitual patterns of behavior. So anything less than 6 months, the danger is you might get the person unstuck. So you can use this methodology to help somebody perform better quite quickly, get a quick new result, see new insights, new possibilities. It can definitely be very helpful, but you're probably not going to get long-term behavioral change without a 6-month investment. So we say, minimum 6 to 8 sessions. We prefer 12, but certainly 6 to 8 would be ideal. But again, even this way of coaching, you can even have a one-off, what we call spontaneous coaching session with somebody, help them get unstuck, and they can suddenly, have a whole raft of new possibilities, and suddenly things shift for that person. So again, there's no hard and fast rule, but we'd recommend certainly to learn this methodology. I would contract with somebody for 7 or 8 sessions, just so you've got time, you don't feel pressured, and you can really feel how it works at leisure.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, then I'll hand over to Notemba, and then Bridget, we see your hands up. We'll get you after that.
I think for me, Michelle, I can only answer the question from my experience with the clients that I've engaged with, in terms of what have I noticed to be quite different before and I guess during and after COVID. I think the first thing for me that I noticed is that people came in very hungry. It's almost as if I didn't have to knock down or knock on doors to invite people into coaching. It's as if there was something about COVID that made people sort of stand still, but also to awaken to what their challenges and issues and struggles in their lives are. And maybe in a sense, it could have been the shock of COVID and the reality of COVID, and then raising awareness of, I need to take care of A, B, C, and D, or maybe just the major changes that people were going through, particularly in terms of jobs and how their jobs were changing, and how all of a sudden, now that I've been forced into a different way of showing up at work, I'm now questioning, why am I even working in this way? So I think that for me, I just got a sense of an urgency to actually pay attention to things that I may not have paid attention to. And maybe the quiet and almost like I am in my world outside of the noise of the outside world maybe facilitated that. But on the opposite end, I think the change of work, the change of way, the change of lifestyle also made other people a lot more overwhelmed, a lot more anxious, and a lot more, just anxious, insecure. So it also raised those insecurities in others, and overwhelm, and I don't know how to deal, I don't know how to manage. So it was, for me, it was two. It was just this powerful awakening, but oh my gosh, I'm so overwhelmed in a sense.
Okay, thank you.
So one of the things we'd also like to do is give you a sense of, well, how would this work? I mean, you've got a group of people online. So what we're going to do is we've had to really go back to school in terms of this and learn. But we're going to break you into 4 groups, each with a coach. And what you'll see is those small groups are actually a wonderful way of actually getting a little bit more intimate, rather than, okay, I've got a cast of thousands of faces in front of me. And also gives you the opportunity to ask and answer some questions. So Bianca, I'm going to ask you to just dump us into those 4 rooms. And so when you get a request to move into a room, just go there.
Okay. Oh, we got pulled back too soon.
We were trying to. Bridget was
Mid-sentence.
asking this, not Bridget. Tamsin was asking this amazing question. So yeah, maybe if I could just answer it. Yeah, I think what the at the end of the day, I suppose what we've learnt over the years is, I think there's a lot that we've learnt from the medical and counselling and other professions, but we've learnt to actually say to ourselves, can we recognise when a counsellor is required? In which case, I might work with that person together with the counsellor in concert. They would be working on the past issues or problems, and we would be working on where am I going to in the future. And maybe we're a collegiality. We're kind of working together. That's one of the things that we've learned to do, is kind of don't work against. It's not either or, it's work with. I don't know if that, it's such a profound question that you're asking. I just hope the one-line answer gives justice to your question. Yeah. Okay, Janine. I think we're on. We are.
Where are we? We are.
We're all back here.
Yeah. Okay. I'm teasing. So, well, I guess the question is, the only other thing I only briefly mentioned is, how do we make this interactive? How do we, some people go, oh my God, 3 days, there's just no way I can spend 3 days online. And, we do things like this. We keep very engaged. We ask you to talk on the chat, if not verbally, videos on. So, and the breakouts keep people very, it's always being applied to yourself. What else we do though is we take breaks so we didn't take a break now. In fact, we should have role modeled our break moments, but every 50 to 60 minutes, we take a 10-minute break, which means you break before you get tired. And you'd be amazed at the difference it makes. It feels a little irritating, in fact, because it's like, oh, it's break time. And Bianca's going, it's break time, stop. And, you sort of go, oh, no, but I'm not tired yet. But it's extraordinary. So people leave our sessions feeling actually energized and tired, full. I'm not saying you won't feel, it's just a bit of a boot camp in terms of it's experientially very rich. But you will not feel the kind of drain that you get if all of you have experienced, days on end of Zoom meetings. It's not that. And we make you stand up and move around and get your bodies moving as well. So I think that's an important area.
You had a couple of last slides, Janine, that you were going to go through.
I've talked them through. Craig.
Okay, cool.
I've talked them through. I think the last thing perhaps that we didn't talk about yet, that I don't even have a slide for, is the learning platform that we use. So it's a GSB online. So it's from the GSB. It's one of the benefits of being there. And it means all the materials, we upload them onto the platform. You download, as we go through. Your assignments are there, everything is there, and we video each session and then we upload it. So let's say you have a bad connection or there's load shedding and you lose connection or whatever, you can sneakily catch up a bit on it. It's just you can't catch up a day by watching it. And now I think you're starting to see why. It's because actually the real learning happens in the breakout rooms, which are not videoed. Those are private to the people in the group. So, but certainly we try and give you as much support material as we can. So there's a lot that you're given in your pack for those who like theory, who like the it domain. That's not where Craig sits so much. But I guess that's more or less it. We had some fun in our group, and I asked, if as a sort of our closing, and then we ran out of time before Bridget could actually say. But my question was, what has struck you? What what one thing would you say has struck you or surprised you or impacted you about what you heard tonight? And it was quite interesting to hear, what.
So that's the suggestion is maybe for each of us to do a checkout and say, what are you leaving with? Yeah, I mean, this is one of the other things to do. We do. So I'm going to point to one person, Quibus. I'm going to say, what are you leaving with? And then you point to the next person. That's one of the other ways that we've learned how to work in Zoom. What are you leaving with?
For me, it's enlightenment, how much wider the Center for Coaching for Development is than the Leadership as Coach. I've recently attended the Leadership as Coach, and
Right.
And looking at this course outline, my thoughts were around how does it differ and how much does it add. And my understanding is that it is both wider in application and deeper. The questions that was asked up front and that was discussed really informed my decision and answered all my questions.
Great.
So I feel satisfied and excited about the coaching opportunity. It's something that I've been experimenting with and looking forward to further development.
Okay, and you get to choose who goes next.
Okay, let's let me go with Michelle. I think there are two Michelles actually.
Yeah, Michelle.
Okay, Michelle.
See, okay, all right, thanks. So I guess I wrote down coaches leave their power at the door, and I liked what you said. I'll walk this road with you, but I won't solve things for you. And I think that's quite powerful in terms of the role of the coach and the power of effective listening and asking people the right questions so that they can come to their own solution that they're happy with. So I think there's a real power in that. And yeah, and it's very interesting. Like Kobus said, it's an area of interest that I've had for a while, and I'd like to learn more about it and really hone on that competency, because I think there's a real need for it. And we were saying in our small group, the post-COVID, I think a lot of people during this time have sort of taken stock a lot about their lives and what they mean to them. And do I get off the train here? What's my life about going forward? So I think there could be an opportunity, even more so going forward, given what the whole world has kind of gone through. So thank you very much. And I am going to nominate Ilsa. Is that right?
Yes, Ilsa. Yes, it was. I also found it really interesting and enlightening. And I think what I'm very curious about is the 3 conversations in one, and the use of narrative and metaphor and reflection, but also then taking it further with the possibility and practices, in terms of the actions. So there's a lot to think about. I think that's what I'm left with. And I'd like to nominate, hang on, I think I've got the wrong screen here. I need to move across. Bridget.
Thanks, Ilse. I think for me, as I mentioned in our small group, the world of coaching is actually quite new to me. I've just recently discovered it. And I think just chatting to everyone and hearing the different aspects of the program, as well as seeing all the different people and hearing the different opinions, I think I walk away with, just reassurance that this really has touched what I'm wanting to do. And I think, it makes me excited. So thank you. And I am going to nominate Julie.
I thought I was hiding. Thank you. Basically, 2 things for myself. What I'm gathering is the journey helps one to be self-aware. That's you as a person. And at the same time, equipping you to help others discover themselves and be effective at what they do. That's in a nutshell what I'm getting away with. Can I pass the ball to Bianca?
Yes, just from my side, thank you for being here this evening. And it's such a pleasure to still do this work from all over the world. And you really are learning an amazing skill that changes people's lives. And I look forward to being a part of this journey with you. Okay, I'm going to choose Nortemba.
Thanks, Bianca, and thanks to everyone. It's always so lovely to meet people at the beginning of their journey with all of these lovely questions that we also had in the beginning of our journey, and just the enthusiasm for coaching and helping others. It's always so exciting to experience right at the beginning. So thank you for being here. Denzel, over to you.
Thank you, Nortemba. I'm like a kid in a candy store, so excited to be here for two reasons. One, as a coach, I have always enjoyed the moment when client or coachee have that aha moment, or the light bulb goes on and they get it. That gave me great excitement and fulfillment. Now, what I'm looking forward to is them coming back and say, wow, I don't just get it, I can do it by myself because you have built or helped me build the competencies. Now that excites me. So that's the one thing. And then secondly, I can't wait to become an integral coach, having been coached and mentored by, like I said, a seasoned integral coach. So I want to be like super smart as he is at the end of the day. So yeah, I'm just very excited to be here. So let us hear from Emily.
Thank you. It's like being picked for playing netball. Is it going to be me? No, I think for me, the things I'm taking away is just how approachable everybody is, and how you can still create this kind of engaging, open, honest discussion after we've all spent a year online. And I think I also come away feeling this is feasible and not something that's kind of out there and, you know, can't be obtained. So I think, yeah, it's been a nice mix of hearing about the practical, but also feeling encouraged that, yes, coaching is something that I can do. All right, so let me pick now. Janine with the trees. I see a picture of trees.
Hi.
Oh, so, you're there twice, Janine.
I'm there twice, yes. But don't worry, it was in case I was going to draw at you, but I didn't. I did slides. From my side, I always say, you know, I was a mess when I started my journey for coaching. I was this young, arrogant, kind of ladder climbing, you know, ex-executive who thought she knew pretty much everything, was definitely very self-aware, and, you know, but something called me to it. And I always say, if I could learn to become a coach, anybody can. So that's what I love about this process and this way of learning. It's very forgiving. It's not about being perfect. It's about making mistakes and learning from them. And actually, adults learn best when they can make mistakes and learn from them. And we say this in the workplace, but it seldom actually happens. What I love about this environment is helping create that space, and then falling into it myself sometimes as well. So I would love to see all, if not most of you, on the CfD coming forward. And thank you so much for being here. And I will nominate Lara.
I was trying to get the unmute button. Thank you, Janine. So I too am very new to coaching. And I'm busy exploring it. For me, I think there's three things that I'll take away from here. Is one, I do like the approach to instead of addressing or trying to solve the issue, you look holistically at the person. and then from there give the person the ability or the capabilities to then find a way to address the issue within a narrative, as Craig mentioned, or different practices. So I have learned something, and I was listening. So that's that. I do like that approach. And then I think something that's very important, and I think we hear it very often, is that people don't listen. We hear, but we don't really listen. And I think it's something that a lot of us in this world need to practice, is to listen more and sometimes to talk less. And then lastly, I think for myself, I need to understand and explore the different models more in terms of coaching, consulting, what was the other one? Coaching, consulting, mentoring. I think there's a fine line between all of them, and knowing where the one ends and the other one starts, for me, is totally new. So it's maybe something I just need to explore a little bit more. And those are the 3 points that I'll take away from this session. So thank you. I think everybody.
No.
No? Oh, sorry. Is it Bridget at the from Nelspruit, I think? Yeah. I think she's on mute.
Yes.
There we go. Thank you.
I don't know. This has been very interesting for me. I think what I'm taking away from it is just how similar a lot of these things, points that we've discussed, is I've come across in my degree. For those who don't know, I'm an occupational therapist. I'm currently working in acute and subacute areas in private hospitals here in Nelspruit. And having my mum and my sister as life coaches, it's obviously been something I've been exposed to over the last 8 years. So yeah, it's just interesting to hear how many similarities, but also where I can learn more. I think I liked the idea of the speech acts, I think you called it, which is the second part of the three systems. So yeah, there's a lot I think I can learn from it. I think at the moment it's maybe a bit too big of a mouthful for me to go into at the moment, but I think it's definitely something that I'm looking forward to maybe doing, or doing in the future. I think it could aid my practice a lot better. So yeah, I've enjoyed this. Oh, and the next person to nominate is it Michaela or Michelle? Michelle?
Yeah, thank you, Bridget. Yeah, that's lovely. It's been, as always, an absolute pleasure to meet all of you and to get to interact with some of you in more depth. Really always a gift for me to get this. There's always such richness in every group that we have, and that is one of the gifts that I find from being part of Centre for Coaching. So wonderful to have met you all, and I hope to see more of you, or some of you, or all of you on the course. And as I say, wonderful to be here. I will pass to Tim.
I'm just super relieved you didn't forget about me completely. No, I'm, coaching is something that I've wanted to pursue for a long time, and I'm just super relieved and super excited that, you're offered a plethora of choices online. And I had no preconceived ideas, no advice from anybody. And I'm just super relieved tonight that I researched UCT, Graduate School of Business, and that I've come upon this one, because this is undoubtedly the best one. And I can't tell you how lekker it feels, tonight to know that, I could have been on some other introductory Zoom coaching course and it just wouldn't have felt right, so I'm super happy about this. And I think I hand over to Craig.
Okay, I'm going to hand over to Mauricia first, and then I'll end it off.
Hi, everyone. It was a pleasure to meet you all and to finally put the faces and I've been communicating with some of you over email. It was a pleasure to see everybody so engaged this evening as well. And really enjoy the journey if you do decide to join us. Have a good night. And I pass on to, I don't think Fetsi.
Yeah, Fetsile, I think.
Fetsil has, yeah.
Yes, Patsy there. Yeah, I think the world, from my point of view, the world needs people who've been on this journey. Whether you end up coaching or whether it influences and impacts what you continue doing. I think it was Michelle who said coaching, COVID has been quite an awakening for all of us. And I think this journey is one that will enrich you and empower you to show up in the world and contribute in a fundamentally different way, but in a way that is much needed. So I look forward to embarking on the journey with those that will cross the Rubicon into this other side. Yeah, I look forward to the engagements that we will have. Yeah.
I just wanted to check, has everyone else gone? Is there anyone that we haven't? Yeah. So yeah, from my side, just to close off and say thank you for coming firstly. I mean, we all have busy lives and we have got other commitments, but been a privilege to be with you. And I hope you're starting to see that there is a level of engagement in this work. And this way that we engage is the kind of tenor and the flavor of how the course would be. So there's content and there's stuff that you need to learn, but I think it's the amazing caliber of people that come and the diversity and range of where they come from. And you're going to learn, if you do decide to come, you're going to learn as much from those people on this course as you're going to learn from anyone else. And that is what I think community-based learning, which we're starting to understand, is the essence of what happens here. So thank you for being here. Be safe. And if there's anything we can help with in terms of you making your decision, please don't hesitate to reach out. It would be a privilege to talk to you. Okay. All right. You have a good evening.